Hello guys, my name is Michael and welcome to a new GTK object tutorial. Today we are going to learn new things, and today we are going to talk about GObject get and of course about another two markers, which is the GObject and GIsObject. Once that you set some values, and once that you know that you can set some values, you should already know that you can get also some values as well. And of course, once that you work with the object types and you can check those types being an object and you get those names, you can also pass to a function an object by telling it that you are passing the right object. And of course, you can check inside another function that you really pass the right object. That being said, let us see how it's working. GObject get function. It is a function which basically retrieves information for you and says gets properties of an object. In general, a copy is made of the property context, and the color is run for freeing the memory in the appropriate manner for the type. For instance, by calling G3 or G object unreferenced. So basically, based on which kind of property you are retrieving, it is the calls which you do. Now I'm not going to work with these two first, because we are not going to create a string or something like this. We are getting only an integer, and for integers we don't need to create to work with memories by needing of calling the G3 and so on. Anyway, because we don't need to create a pointer, we need to create just a regular variable. I'm going to say at this point right here int value, and now we can safely call this function. The first thing first, our button, and now we need its margin, because I know its margin is a int. I don't need to value, it's not important. Now we have properties, playlist, and you can check everything which you don't understand right now. Now, because we passed the value, we are passing basically its address. Now we can say gprint the value of the margin is %d, and of course the value. And now let us check which is the value. It should be of course 25, because we set it with the GObject set in the last video, and of course the value of the margin is 25. So basically this is what this function does, the GObject get. Now let us move on to something new, GObject. Well, here is something important for you to understand, and what I'm talking about. GTK has its own checking type, and provide you a much better way of handling the things which you are working with. But GTK itself, it doesn't stop you from doing bad things. For example, working with some wrong cast, and even working with the right cast. I strongly suggest you to don't work with those C casts, as you probably think that it is a good thing, because the worst thing which happens in C are those casts. But we need them, and sometimes when we are 100% sure that we need to work with them, then we need to apply them. But before you think in GTK programming that you need a C cast, just check before if there is no GTK cast already, because those GTK casts does the runtime check for you, which normally GTK or C cast doesn't for you. You will see what exactly I'm talking about when we are working with these two things right here. So for this, I'm going to create a function. I'm going to say void foo GObject, and of course an object, and of course let us define it with some information. I'm going to say G return if fail. So, and now I'm going to call basically the GIsObject call, and I'm going to pass the object. Now let's say G print I am an GObject, whatever, it's not important. So what does this function? This function basically, it is a function returns nothing but takes a parameter as a GObject pointer. Once that you go inside the function, basically it will be checked that this function has really a GObject, and for this we are calling the GIsObject macro to check this kind of thing. So basically GIsObject just calls the GType check instance type for you. You know, you don't need to know at this point. You only need thing which you need to know is that it's checking the object being an object. If it's not an object, then it will return, and this call never happens. That is what you need to know. Okay, so now the full call which will be right here, and calling for, and I'm going to say if I pass now the button inside it, just to be sure that we have something, it will say passing the first from computer pointer, of course, because we said GObject. So now it is coming the GObject type, GObject, sorry, and button. What we are doing now, we are dealing with a compiler which doesn't really understand about a lot of things what the GTK does, about the inner hints and so on. So basically this function help us to cast to the right object, and also give us the chance to work with the right object by presenting us on the at the right time a check for us. So basically now if I compile it and run it, it will say I am an object, because it works fine. We just said, you see, I am an object. I just said to the compiler that I need to cast the button to GObject, because I know the button it is a GObject, and we know because it is derived from there, even if it's not directly, but it's still derived from an object, so it works fine. The same things happens if you work with a C style, which I strongly suggest you to not work with it. Let's see, GObject, you see, we are going to use now the C style. See, now we have the C cast right here. I'm going to compile it and run it, and it is still working fine. And this happens, why? Because we pass an object which is there from it. Is the same things happens if we pass now a grid. Instead of the button, we are passing the grid, and we say it is a grid. It will still work, because the grid, it is also an object. You see, I am an object, so everything works fine. Now I cannot really show you a better way of checking an object, because we need to create new objects, and this is not the point right now. Instead, we are going to make some new changes. Instead that, we are going to create a function which expects a GTK button and not a GTK, not a GObject. And I'm going to change the call of GIsObject to a GTK is button, which basically does the same check for us. It checks if the object it is a button. If it's not, it will return, and this call will never take place. Watch now what happens. Passing the argument 1, yeah, because now we need to GTK button. We need to change a little bit the casting, because we need now a GTK button. Watch what happens now. Now we have a different story. Bam! We get no I am a object print anymore, and says assertion GTK is button, and something's failed. You see, it is failed because we took care about a part of it by calling this function. Worst will be if we don't call this function, then it will run this function on the wrong argument or parameter. Now I want to show you something else. Watch what happens if this time, instead of calling GTK button the C cast, I'm going to call the GTK button GTK cast, and I'm going to pass, of course, the grid again. You see, and I'm going to comment. What did I change now? I changed the for call where we are using the CCast by passing a GTK button cast, which is the GTK cast. Watch what happens now. We are not using the CCast anymore. Now we got definitely more information, because now instead of just one, which was right here, we got another one, which helps us a lot. Which says, warning, invalid cast from GTK grid to GTK button. So you see, we just got some good information, and we can deal with this good information as well. So this is the way how you work with this cast. Basically, never use GTK button instead of GTK underscore button, the cast. So never use the GTK, the C style, the C casting style. Instead, you should work with GTK casting style, because you get more information. But now I want to show you something very important. No one, and I repeat, no one stop you from doing also some wrong things. Like for example, here we got the type on an object. So even if you get the type of an object, you have the object itself, but once that you have the type, what do you think it happens if you now pass, instead of the grid, the type? You are casting to the GTK button, and the macro fails. Remember guys, just be sure the macro fails. No matter which exactly which kind of cast you are checking, the macro will fail. So nobody stop you from doing wrong things to your computer or to your application. Watch, you see segmentation fault, you see, because now it is not important even if you check against it fail. No, it's not important. This one, what exactly happens, because you just pass the wrong argument and you cast it. You see, you cast it. You said yourself, I need it to be a type, and it did for you. But even the GTK button cast didn't catch this one. You saw for yourself. So just be sure that you understand what are you doing there. So before you pass something to a function, just be sure you are passing the right thing, because those casts are still bad, are still wrong. Nobody save you. See, segmentation fault. Because why? Because we are passing type. Even if you work with a GTK cast style, it will still don't save you, because the compiler let you do those things. When you cast something, the compiler will let you do those things, because the compiler obeys you, and your decision are the one which are important for the compiler. But at least if you work with the right things, like me, I'm passing here now a grid, which is an object. Now at this point, at least the GTK helps you and catch the problem by telling you that you are trying to cast a GTK grid to a GTK button. Things which will never happen if you work with the C style, isn't it? So me, if I now cast the grid to the GTK button, the C style, the C cast style, it will get only one. You see, you get only one warning, and that's not enough for you. Okay, just to be sure. What happens now if I drop this call right now? You see, and of course I'm going to call void. I'm just silencing the compiler. I'm not doing something to the parameter, so you understand. I'm just, because I'm not working, you see, I'm not working with the object. I just want to call this function. So you see, it says I am an object, you get nothing. So you have no idea if it failed because of the things you did there. You see, but if you say GTK, this is an important thing. It is important for you to understand, because if you now say GTK button, I hate this, GTK button, and you pass the grid, if you drop that G return a fail call, which you should not, or if you forgot it, then at least you get something. You see, invalid cast to GTK, from GTK grid to GTK button, thing which you didn't got with GTK button C cast style. Just to be sure. I hope you understand, guys. If not, leave a comment and I'm going to explain it, or I'm going to try to explain it in a different manner. But one thing is very important. Again, the last thing which I'm telling you again, never use the C cast. Always use the GTK cast as long as it's possible and they are there. And if, and I repeat, if you are casting in with GTK style or with the C style and you are passing a wrong argument, then you are on your own, because the compiler will leave you to do those mistakes, which it should never happen. Like you saw when we are passing the type of the G type instead of an object, like the grid or the button or the label or whatever you are passing, which is a bad thing for you. That being said, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, share with your friends and neighbors, and until next time, see you guys.